Tonight, you'll wander with a team of weary scientists as they descend under Antarctic ice, expecting only stone and silence, until the drill touches something warm, something pulsing with a rhythm older than storms. What they find there is not a machine, nor a myth, but a living intelligence woven into the planet's deepest grid, a vast Lemurian mind that has been whispering beneath human dreams for centuries. As you settle in, you'll hear how those faint REM harmonics we all carry lead Dr. Olivia Carter and her colleagues to a sleeping presence capable of steadying climates and guiding tectonic breath. Yet waking it fully could mean losing the wild freedom that shaped humanity itself. So rest here, gently, while a handful of dream-linked explorers step closer to that great consciousness and discover what it asks of those who dare to listen. Let me know in the comments how you are liking these stories. And now we begin this incredible drift. In the blackness 2 kilometers under Antarctic ice, a drill bit stops with a soft wrong sound. It does not hit rock. It slides into something that flexes. Alarms flash in the control chamber as pressure readings spike and fall in slow waves like a heartbeat. Pumps cut off with a sharp click. The drilling rig sighs into silence. In the dim red light, the team stares at the wall of screens. A live camera drops down the borehole, its lens pushing past frozen rings of ice. The walls shimmer with a moist, organic shine. Thin lines glow faintly in the infrared feed, like veins under pale skin. At the center, the metal drill tip is stuck in a thick, pulsing layer of tissue. It squeezes, then releases, in a slow, steady rhythm. Far above, in the insulated sleep lab, a test subject turns in their bunk. Electrodes cling to their scalp. Their brainwave monitor flares with a sudden spike, a new pattern riding under their normal dreams. Deep below, the tissue's pulse shifts to match it beat for beat. Dr. Olivia Carter leans in toward the waveform display. Her breath fogs her face shield. She knows this signal. Years ago, she found the same hidden pattern inside every human dream on Earth. Until tonight, it lived only as numbers on screens. Now it is coming from a vast, living structure under the ice, and it has just noticed that humans are here. Olivia first saw the strange pattern 12 years before the drill hit living tissue. Back then, she was sitting in a cramped lab in New Wellington, a floating city anchored in what used to be the Southern Pacific. Outside her window, the sea was a dull green sheet under gray clouds. Inside, the air smelled of plastic and coffee. She was not looking for anything new. She was only checking a global sleep report. For decades, hospitals and clinics around the world had shared anonymized brainwave data during REM sleep. They did this to study nightmares after climate disasters, to check how pollution and stress change dreams, and to help treat mass insomnia in flooded cities. Olivia's job was to watch for strange patterns that might point to a new disease or a shared trauma. She had scanned thousands of files. Most nights were boring. But that night, a single glitch caught her eye. A tiny spike, barely visible, showed up in a cluster of REM readings from Greenland. It sat under the usual storm of brainwave noise, almost hidden. It rose, dipped, and rose again in a simple, smooth shape. It repeated every few seconds. Olivia paused, then pulled up another batch of data from a clinic in Lagos. The same tiny spike sat in those dreams too. She frowned. Different people, different continents, same shape. She grabbed data from Mumbai, São Paulo, Vancouver, Nairobi, Melbourne. Years of night recordings scrolled past her eyes. She wrote a quick filter to search for that shape across all of them. The answer came back an hour later. The spike was there in all of it. Old data, new data, men, women, children, healthy people and sick people, rich and poor, different cultures, different languages, different lives. Under every dream storm, a soft, steady signal pulsed in the same way. Olivia named it the REM Harmonic. At first, no one believed her. Colleagues said it was noise, a bug in the software, a power line artifact, a filter error. She double-checked everything. She pulled raw analog recordings from sealed archives, some almost half a century old. The harmonic was there too. It was not a glitch. It was as if every human brain on Earth was tuned to the same faint rhythm during REM sleep. The media grabbed the story, and twisted it into myths. People said it proved a global unconscious, or a god signal, or aliens. Olivia kept away from those shows. She did not want fame. She wanted data. For years she tried to find a source. She compared the REM harmonic to solar flares, power grid loads, satellite traffic, deep space radio noise, even global lightning maps. Nothing matched. Then the seabed machines woke up. They were first noticed by accident during a deep sonar survey of the western Indian Ocean. Strange metal structures buried under the seafloor began to hum in narrow bands of energy. At the same time, glowing shapes started rising from trenches in the Pacific and Atlantic, like cities made of light. The world panicked, then organized. Nations signed a new global charter to study the seabed machines instead of fighting over them. Task forces formed. New satellites went up. Underwater drones went down. Olivia watched all this from her lab, half thrilled, half afraid. The Lemurian grid, people called it, borrowing an old myth about a lost southern land. No one knew who built the machines. No known country claimed them. No old wreck matched their design. Months later, a data tech in Chile sent Olivia a quiet message. "You should see this," he wrote, attaching a file. It was a frequency log from a seabed machine off the coast of Antarctica. A faint trace sat under its normal output, almost lost in the noise. It rose, dipped, and rose again with a simple, smooth shape, exactly like the REM harmonic. Olivia's hands shook as she overlaid the two signals. They matched, not just in shape, in timing. The phases lined up. When the REM harmonic in human sleep sped up slightly, the seabed machine's faint undersignal did the same. When it slowed, the machine followed. If the seabed machine was an instrument, it was tuned to the same song that human dreams were humming. Olivia sent her results to the new Lemurian Grid Council, a joint group of scientists and diplomats formed under the global charter. For months, she heard nothing. Then a secure call came through to her lab. 3 faces appeared on her wall screen. A pale woman with sharp eyes, Dr. Samuel Knox, a neurogeologist famous for mapping strange magnetic rocks under Greenland. A broad-shouldered officer with gray starting to show. At his temples, Major Eric Daniels, from the International Subterranean Operations Corps, and an older scientist in a blue sweater from the Council, Dr. Yi-Jin Rao. Dr. Carter, Rao said, "We think your harmonic has a location." They had been using new satellites fitted with deep penetration sensors, able to read faint electromagnetic and gravitic changes. Under the crust, the REM harmonic, mixed with the seabed signal, showed a set of delays and distortions as it passed through the planet. "Think of it like listening to thunder from different places," Samuel said. "From the timing, you can guess where the lightning hit." They had built a global timing map of the harmonic, using sleep labs on every continent and nodes near the seabed machines. With it, they could see how the signal arrived at different points in slightly different ways. All lines pointed south. "What we see," Samuel said, tapping a globe on his desk, "is a central source, somewhere under East Antarctica. Not under the old Vostok Vault. Deeper, farther inland, there is a mass there that does not match bedrock models. It is quiet in most bands, but at REM harmonic frequencies it breathes." Olivia stared at the map. A web of lines in false color converged on a small, cold patch in the middle of the Antarctic ice sheet. Major Daniels leaned closer to his camera. "We're putting together a joint mission," he said. "Subterranean operations, neuroresonance, climate science. We need a cognitive interface specialist who knows this pattern better than anyone. We need you on site." Olivia looked past her wall at the gray sea beyond. For 12 years, the REM harmonic had been a ghost in her life, always there, always unsolved. "How deep?" she asked. 2 kilometers of ice," Daniel said. "Then another kilometer of rock. We think the anomaly starts there." Olivia nodded slowly. "Then we drill." 6 months later, Olivia felt the deck of the cargo plane shudder as it cut through Antarctic air. The windows were small ovals of darkness. Only the wing lights showed anything, a thin line of frost streaking past in the night. Major Daniels sat across from her in a gray flight harness, eyes half closed, hands folded over his chest. He looked calm, but his jaw was tight. "This base is under the new treaty, right?" Olivia asked, raising her voice over the engine roar. He opened his eyes. Yes, no flags, no private claims. Everything we find is held in trust under the global Lemurian Accord. So no one gets to turn a planetary brain into a weapon, she said. He gave a short smile. That is the idea. Behind them, strapped into side seats, a mix of nations and fields sat side by side. Dr. Samuel Knox, with his wild dark hair and careful hands, flipping through a 3D model of the Antarctic crust on a hollow slab. An Inuit glaciologist from the Arctic Council, eyes closed, saving energy. A Kenyan climate modeler. A Brazilian deep drill engineer. 2 Japanese neuroresonance techs. An Indian medic. 3 subterranean operations soldiers in pale thermal armor, helmets in their laps. On the bulkhead, a small screen showed their target, base Lemuria-South, a cluster of domes and towers half buried in ice, glowing faint orange under infrared. From here, the deep drill would go down. Olivia's own seat was different from the rest. Cables ran from it to a portable neuromonitor on the wall. A headband with dry electrodes waited in her lap. You nervous? Samuel asked, sliding into the seat beside her. Yes, she said. Good, he answered. So am I. He tapped the hollow slab, bringing up a rotating shape, a rough 3D image of the anomaly under the ice. It looked like a flattened oval, about 40 kilometers across, pressed into the crust. Rock around it, he said, but the inner core, nothing models it well. Density is off. It is slightly softer in gravitic readings. It dampens seismic waves but rings a bit at harmonic frequencies. It responds. You think it is alive, Olivia said. I think it behaves like a giant piece of neural tissue married to a crystal backbone, Samuel said. But no one has ever seen a brain this size. If it is a brain, it is what feeds the REM harmonic, Olivia said softly. He nodded. That much we are sure of. The timing fits too well, and it sits at a strange crossing point. He swiped, and another model appeared, the Lemurian grid. Thin lines showed the positions of seabed machines mapped so far, and the rising luminous cities on the ocean floor. Lines connected them into a vast geometric pattern around the globe. The center of that pattern was not in any ocean. It was right under their target in Antarctica. The anomaly is the central node, Samuel said. If this is a brain, it is sitting right where you would put a control hub. Olivia looked back at him. And it has been connected to our dreams for who knows how long. He shrugged slightly. Maybe it always has, he said. Maybe it started linking with us after we reached a certain level of neural complexity. Or maybe someone designed it that way. Lemurians, she said, half teasing. Call them whatever you like, Samuel replied. But if this is a planetary regulation intelligence, as some models suggest, then we are about to meet the thing that has been keeping Earth's climate and tectonics within limits for a very long time. And if we wake it more, she asked. He closed the hollow slab. That, he said, is why you are coming, because it already touches our minds. We need to know what that contact feels like before we push anything further. The plane banked. Outside, a faint pale glow slipped under the windows, the reflection of polar light on endless ice. The REM harmonic hummed quietly across the planet, unseen, running through sleeping brains and deep machines. For years, it had been a mystery pattern. Now, the team was heading toward its heart. The first breath of Antarctic air stole the moisture from Olivia's lungs. She stepped out of the cargo plane into a white world under a dark sky. The wind knifed across the open ice sheet, fine crystals hissing against her thermal suit. Ahead, base Lemuria-South glowed like a buried lantern. Low domes and sharp towers rose from scooped-out pits in the ice, linked by covered walkways. Tall masts held sensors that turned slowly in the wind. Cables as thick as trees vanished into a central drilling tower. Inside, the base was cramped and warm. The air smelled of metal, food, and faint ozone. People moved with practiced care, boots clanging on grated floors. Major Daniels led the group straight to the drill control hall. It was a large room lined with consoles, and thick windows looking out at the central, a wide shaft ringed with ice-proof barriers and vibration dampers. Above it, the drill tower's inner core descended in a humming blur. "This is borehole A," said a short engineer with sharp gray eyes, introducing herself as Marta Alvarez. "We are at 1,800 meters of ice. No major faults so far. Rock interface soon. After that, we move slow." "Any sign of the anomaly yet?" Samuel asked, his gaze already on the sensor wall. "Early hints," Marta said. "Your gravimetrics showed up a subtle dip. Our own seismics show a strange shadow beneath 3,000 meters. Waveforms bend around something soft down there." "Soft," Olivia repeated. "Like what?" Marta gave a helpless shrug. "Not water, not magma, not standard sediment. Our filters do not like it. Maybe your brain maps will." Olivia moved toward a side console, where a tall, slim woman with shaved hair and a calm face stood waiting. "I am Dr. Hana Sato," she said, bowing slightly. "Neuroresonance lead. I have your REM harmonic filters loaded." They shook hands. Hana gestured to a screen showing a live band scan from the drilling area. Noise from motors, deep ice shifts, distant storms. "There," Hana said, tapping a faint line. "When the drill cycles down, a tiny signal hums up through the ice. Same frequency range as the harmonic, very weak, but it is there." Olivia leaned closer. Her heart beat a little faster. Even with the drill still hundreds of meters away, something under the ice reached up, breathing in the same rhythm that human dreams used. The days blurred into a strict rhythm. The drill team worked in rotating shifts, guiding the bit down through ancient ice. Sometimes they paused to open side channels and drop sensor packs, small cylinders that unfolded like metal flowers, pressing probes into the walls. Samuel's team watched those sensor feeds in a small, overheated lab. Models of the crust updated in real time. Strange reflections and muted rings built a ghostly shape under the rock, a wide, curved mass that did not behave like stone. "It looks like a blister," Samuel said during one midnight stretch, eyes bloodshot. The crust rose over something softer, then froze around it. "How old?" Olivia asked. "Hard to say," Samuel replied. "Older than the last glacial cycle. Maybe older than human civilization." The more data they gathered, the more the anomaly looked like a living thing. Seismic waves that passed through it slowed down and smoothed out, as if moving through thick, even tissue. Magnetic scans showed tiny, sharp spikes arranged in strange, regular grids, as if crystals had grown in programmed patterns. Heat maps showed it at a stable temperature, slightly warmer than the rock around it, but not hot enough to be magma. "It is regulating itself," Samuel said quietly, "keeping a set point, like a brain keeps its own temperature and balance." Olivia studied the REM harmonic monitor. Each time the drill advanced a little deeper, the faint undersignal from below grew a little stronger, but not in a straight line. Certain depths made it surge, others made it calm again. It was as if they were moving through layers of a sleeping, hidden mind. Major Daniels kept his own team busy. Subterranean operations soldiers tested exosuits, emergency climb systems, and borehole descent rigs. They drilled through ice in side shafts to test for sudden melt pockets or deadly gas. They ran evac drills in case the entire drill tower needed to be sealed and cut away. "If it is alive," Olivia asked him during a lunch break, "what happens if we hurt it?" Daniels took a slow bite of protein bread, chewing while he thought. "We are using the smallest practical bit," he said. "Low heat, low vibration, constant monitoring. If we see sharp distress, heat spikes, violent movement, rapid field changes, we back off. And if backing off is too late," she pressed. He held her gaze. "Then we adapt in real time," he said. "That is why we brought you. If this thing talks through dreams, we want someone ready to listen before it panics." At 2,947 meters, the drill hit rock. The sound changed, a deeper grinding that vibrated through the tower. The base seemed to tense. Marta slowed the feed rate and swapped in a rock bit. Cutting rock was slower and riskier. Rock shifted. It cracked without warning. It hid pockets of trapped ice that could flash to steam. They pushed on. Every night Olivia slept in the base's small sleep lab, a narrow room with 4 bunks and a central monitor wall. Hana hooked her to sensors and recorded her REM cycles. Olivia's dreams became strange. She dreamed of wide, dark spaces, of slow tides of pressure moving under her feet, of cold light flickering through crystals. She woke with fragments she could not fully remember, like views from a camera placed deep inside the earth. The harmonic in your REM is stronger here, Hannah said, showing her charts. Sometimes it spikes in step with micro changes in the anomaly field, as if it is noticing you. It noticed the whole species long ago, Olivia said. We are just finally coming closer. Days later, at 102 meters, the drill team spotted the first clear sign that they were no longer dealing with rock. On a small camera probe lowered behind the bit, the walls of the borehole showed a thin, smooth layer of material that was not mineral. It looked almost like polished bone, pale and faintly translucent. Transition layer, Samuel said. A shell. Beyond that shell, sensors showed a dense region with higher water content and a strange electrical profile. Neural tissue, Samuel whispered, more to himself than to the room. Marta stopped the drill. We are not punching through that with a standard bit, she said. We need a gentle entry. Laser cord, low heat, clean edge. Major Daniels stepped in and took official control of the next phase. Protective protocols snapped into place. Non-essential staff were moved to side modules. Emergency seals were checked. A medical team stood ready in case any weird field effect struck the crew. Olivia watched as a specialized probe was prepped. A sleek cylinder with a soft, rounded tip, lined with sensors and a small, low-power cutting ring. Its job was to press against the shell, warm a tiny tunnel, and slip into the layer below without tearing. We are about to touch it, Hannah said quietly at her side. Do you feel anything? Olivia asked. Hannah shook her head. Not yet, but we might not be the first minds it has touched today. In the sleep lab, a test subject, an Australian volunteer with stable REM patterns, was already wired in for baseline readings, just as in the pilot event that would follow. The probe descended. Video from its front camera filled the main screen. The borehole walls slid past. Ice-stained rock, then smoother rock, then the pale, almost glossy shell. Tiny crystals glittered on its surface, arranged in regular hexagonal patterns. Crystalline nodes, Samuel said, leaning forward, just like the Antarctic vault walls, just like the samples from the rising cities. The cutting ring glowed dull red. It touched the shell and began to trace a small circle, melting a narrow path. The material did not crack. It softened, then formed a neat collar around the probe. Sensors flashed. Electrical field shift, Hannah reported. Frequency band widening. The harmonic is rising. Major Daniels' voice stayed steady. Proceed, Marta. The probe slipped through. For a heartbeat, there was only dark. Then the camera adjusted, and the wall before them came into view. It was not rock. It was a dense, moist surface, faintly ridged, like muscle under thin skin. Tiny channels ran through it, gleaming with a clear, viscous fluid. Between those channels, clusters of microscopic crystals shone like stars, each no larger than a grain of sand. The tissue moved. Slowly, as if waking from a long sleep, it pressed against the probe, then relaxed. Pressure sensors showed a gentle squeeze. Olivia stared, barely breathing. Alive, Samuel said. It is alive. Hannah's console chimed urgently. The REM harmonic just spiked across the planet, she said. Not just here. Global labs are reporting a tiny synchronized surge. People in REM everywhere. Their background pattern just rose, then matched this thing's pulse. On the live feed, the tissue's motion settled into a regular rhythm. The crystals near the probe lit up and dimmed in careful, repeating patterns. Data poured in. Temperature, charge, micro vibrations. The thing was not just reacting. It was scanning them. This is a planetary regulation intelligence, Samuel said. Eyes wide. Look at the structure. Layered tissue for processing. Crystal grids for long-term storage and field control. Its baseline pulse sits exactly at the REM harmonic frequency we have measured. And its position. He brought up the global grid map again, overlaying the probe's location. At the center of the Lemurian grid, he said softly, every seabed machine, every rising city, all of it lines back here. We are looking at the core node. Olivia's hands curled into fists. For millennia, this thing has sat here, quiet, touching our dreams and tuning our world, she said. It has held back bigger swings in climate. It has smoothed tectonic shocks. Now, for the first time, we have put a tool into its body. Major Daniels watched the screen with a soldier's stillness. Only a small muscle in his cheek moved. Question is, he said, does it see that as an injury or as a handshake? On the monitor in the sleep lab, the test subject's brainwave pattern shifted again. A new wave slid under their normal REM spikes, matching the slow, steady beat of the tissue below the ice. The living Lemurian brain had felt the touch. The next step would not be metal against flesh. It would be mind against mind. The first time they tried to sleep with the Lemurian brain, no one knew what to expect. They chose a chamber deep in the base, as close to the borehole as they could safely go. It was a round room lined with soft panels and dim, warm lights. Thick cables and fiber lines ran along the ceiling, down the walls, and into the floor, linking the chamber straight to the probe inside, the tissue. 4 sleep pods stood in a circle. Each pod was like a narrow bed inside a short, open tube, with a curved shield that could slide down over the sleeper's body. Above each pod, a monitor arm waited, loaded with sensors and drip lines. "You do not have to do this," Major Daniels said, standing in the doorway. His voice was calm, but his eyes were serious. Olivia sat on the edge of the nearest pod, already in a thin base jumpsuit. Hana fixed small sensors along her scalp and at the base of her neck. "I have been listening to this pattern most of my life," Olivia said. "If anyone should go first, it is me." "You are not going first," Hana said. "We are going together." The other volunteers stepped forward. There was a young climate coder from Lagos, Tunde, who had lost his seaside home to a storm surge when he was a child, and had joined the Lemurian research program to keep that from happening to others. There was a Russian geophysicist named Alina who had spent years in Arctic stations and said she slept best with the sound of ice moving under her. There was the protagonist, you, standing there with a strange tightness in the chest. You had trained for neuroresonance work for years, learning how to keep your sense of self steady, while strange fields nudged your brain. Your REM cycles were unusually regular, almost musical. Olivia had called your brain a good tuning fork. Now that tuning fork was about to ring with something older and larger than any human brain. "Last check," Hana said, moving from pod to pod. "If anyone feels unsure, say so now. There is no shame in waiting." No one moved. Major Daniels nodded once. "Protocol is clear," he said. "We ramp up contact slowly. We monitor you and the Lemurian core at all times. If anything looks bad, heart rate spikes, seizure patterns, sharp distress in the tissue, we cut the link and wake you. Hard." He looked at you. "If you feel your sense of you slipping too far, try to think of a strong memory, anchor to it." You nodded. A memory came up at once. Standing as a child under a hot summer rain, bare feet on warm pavement, the smell of wet dust all around. It felt sharp and bright, like a hook you could grab if you started to slide. Olivia lay back in her pod. You took the one next to hers. Tunde and Alina took the other two. Hana checked the final connections, then moved to a console at the edge of the room. Samuel stood beside her, while Major Daniels watched from a small glass window above, where a control booth looked down into the chamber. Closing shields, Hana said. The curved covers slid down partway over your body, leaving your face and upper chest open. The lights dimmed to a soft red glow. You could still see Olivia's profile, dim and calm. A few meters away, on the main screen in the control booth, 4 brainwave plots came to life. Each had a thin, pale band at the bottom, the REM harmonic filter, tuned to the same frequencies as the Lemurian brain. A 5th plot showed the tissue's pulse from the probe. "All right," Hana said softly. "Let yourselves drift. We will nudge your cycles toward REM once you are stable." It took a while. The hum of the base fans, the faint hiss of air, the thought of what you were about to touch, all of it made it hard to relax at first. You watched the red glow under your eyelids and listened to your own breathing. Think of it as any other lab sleep. Hana's voice came through a small speaker near your ear. "You are safe. We are watching." You let your mind soften. Images came and went, The silver skin of the drill tower, a cup of hot tea from that morning, the face of a friend back home. They slid away like leaves in a slow stream. Your muscles unwound. Your breath deepened. Stage 2, Hannah murmured. To someone else now. Her voice sounded far away. The change to Ram came gently. A mild pulse of sound under the hearing range brushed your brain. Guided by Hannah's equipment, your thoughts grew strange, less tied to the room. Behind your closed eyes, dim shapes stirred. On the screen above, your brainwaves shifted into Ram patterns, fast, irregular spikes with smooth waves under them. The same happened to Olivia, Tunde, and Alina. Bassline REM achieved, Hannah said. Now introducing Harmonic carrier. She touched a control. The probe deep in the Lemurian tissue gave a tiny signal burst. Not loud, not forced. Just a clear, regular beat at the brain's natural pulse. That beat came up along the fiber lines into the chamber. It played out as a faint magnetic field, and a very weak electric pattern, shaped to match the REM harmonic that already sat under your dreams. Inside your head, something new slid under your usual dream noise. It was a slow, steady wave, gentle as a tide. Your thoughts tried to bend around it, like grass around a stone. You did not see anything yet. You felt it, a presence, quiet and patient, sitting just outside your mind's door. On the monitors, the pale bands at the bottom of all 4 brainwave plots began to rise. Your REM harmonic strength increased, and its timing edged closer to the Lemurian brain's pulse. Synchronizing phase starting, Hannah said. Her fingers danced over the console. We keep it at surface link only, no deep coupling. The Lemurian brain responded. The probe feed showed a slight change in tissue motion. The crystals around the probe brightened, then dimmed in a pattern that matched your combined REM pulses. The brain had noticed the 4 tiny minds below the ice, pressing against its rhythm. For a moment it did nothing more. Then it leaned in. You were standing on an endless field of ice. Not quite standing, dream standing. Your body felt light and unreal. The sky above was dark, filled with slow green and blue lights that slid and curled like seaweed. Olivia stood a few meters to your left, though you had not seen her walk up. She looked as real as in waking life, but there was something calmer in her eyes, as if some usual worry had dropped away. Shared dream state, her voice came, not exactly from her mouth, but from everywhere around. We are linked through the harmonic. Is this safe? Tunde's voice asked. He stood on your other side, wearing the same base jumpsuit, though he was barefoot and his hair shifted, slightly in a wind you could not feel. I have control valves ready, Hannah's voice said, coming down like a mild rain. She did not appear as a person. She was the sky itself. If anything spikes, I pull you out. Beneath your feet, the ice was clear enough to see down through it. Far, far below, something enormous moved. Not fast, not violent, just there, a slow rise and fall, like the chest of a sleeping giant under a frost sheet. Faint lights sparkled deep inside it, arranged in patterns that did not feel random. You feel that? Olivia asked. You nodded, though you were not sure if the nod was inside the dream or outside. It feels curious, Alina said. She had appeared a little farther away, her breath puffing in the cold dream air, like it is looking up at us. The presence grew stronger, but not heavy or crushing. It was more like standing near a huge, very quiet person. You were aware of its size, of the way it stretched under kilometers of rock and ice, but it did not press down on you. It watched. Images flickered at the edge of your vision, not full scenes, hints. Warm oceans under a pink sky, thick forests where no human foot had ever stepped, volcanoes spitting ash into a clear atmosphere, then, calming, as if some hand had turned a dial. Earth, Olivia said softly. But before us, the pictures were not like human memories. They did not stay. They did not form neat stories. They came in short flashes, tied to shifts in the slow, steady wave inside your mind. It is showing us its work, Samuel's voice said. He must be watching your linked EEG feeds, climate set points, tectonic tension relief, energy routing. The dream ice under your feet thinned. You saw not just the Lemurian brain below, but lines of dim light running out from it in all directions. They traveled through rock and ocean, curving with the planet's shape. Along those lines sat nodes, seabed machines, rising cities, crystal vaults, the Lemurian grid. It pulsed, very slowly. With each pulse, deep currents in the oceans shifted a little. Wind belts edged north or south. Heat rose or sank. Quakes that could have been huge softened into smaller tremors. The brain did not think in words. It thought in balances. The presence turned its attention toward a different kind of balance. You. The first deep touch came like standing in shallow water while a very slow wave rolled past. Your sense of eye tugged. Not sharply, but enough to make you grab for that anchor memory you had chosen. Hot summer rain, wet pavement, the smell of dust, your small feet on the ground, toes curling. For a second, the dream ice and polar lights faded. You were back, years ago, in that bright street, water running in gutters. You felt your skin, your size, your age. You heard your own laugh. The tug eased. Good Hana Sky voice said, "Stay with your anchor. You are brushing against its outer fields. It is not grabbing. It is tasting." "Tasting?" Tunde said. "That is not very comforting, Doctor." "I cannot find a better word," Hana answered. "It is reading your pattern, like we read its waveforms." Olivia turned to you. "Can you feel any words?" she asked. "Any sense of what it wants?" You reached out in your mind, very slowly, the way a person might reach a hand towards a large, unknown animal. At first there was nothing but the slow, heavy rhythm of its being. Then a shape came. Not an image, not a sentence. More like an idea made simple enough for a dream. You saw a spinning sphere in your mind's eye, blue and green, white clouds, familiar, Earth. Around it, a thin shell of light pulsed. The Lemurian grid. Not your grid, its grid. Then the shell thickened, brightened, and the spinning slowed. Storms shrank, ice sheets grew stable margins. Quake lines calmed. In your chest, a feeling came with the image. Steady, safe, held. Then the shell flickered, the lights dimmed. The spinning sped up again. Storms grew wild. Ice melted, quakes shook harder. Fires burned longer. A different feeling came. Loose, wild, painful, beautiful, risky. 2 modes, 2 choices. "It is giving us a picture," you said. Your voice sounded strange, as if coming out of both your mouth and the air. Controlled planet, free planet, both are possible. "It has been holding things in a middle zone," Olivia said slowly. "Not fully fixed, not fully wild." The presence warmed, just a little, as if glad someone had understood. Then it shifted its focus again. This time the dream shook. You were no longer standing on ice. You were falling. Not far, not fast, but the feeling of ground under you was gone. Sky and earth traded places. The polar lights stretched into long lines. You saw flashes as you turned in the dream. A child crying in a flooded house. A ship torn by a freak wave. A forest returning after 100 years. A new city built on high ground. Its towers catching clean sunlight. A glacier crumbling into the sea. People laughing in a floating market at sunset. Human life. Countless lives, all layered on the planet's slow moods. You felt the Lemurian brain watching those lives the way it watched tides and winds, not with human pity or joy, but with a kind of careful interest. They were part of its equations now, new variables added to land and sea. It did not want to crush them. It did not want to give up its role either. The feeling came as a question, asked without words. Stability higher, human choice narrower, or stability lower, human choice wider, risk greater? This is the central question, Samuel's distant voice said. If we wake it fully, give it more say, it can smooth Earth's systems farther. But to do that, it might need to limit our range, our war, our extraction, our chaos, and our growth, Alina said. Our art, our mistakes, our strange turns. Can it even understand those? Tunde asked. Or are we just heat sources and noise in its models? The presence listened. Then, for the first time, it pushed. The shared dream thinned. For a brief, dizzy moment, all four human minds were pressed closer together. You felt Olivia's sharp focus, her long years of frustration and hunger for answers. You felt Tunde's quiet grief and hope. You felt Olivia's stubborn pride, the cold of the Arctic in her bones. They felt you, hot summer rain, wet dust, the choice you had made years ago to study minds instead of machines because you wanted to know what made humans more than moving parts. Your eyes stretched, pulling toward theirs. At the same time, a much larger field lay just beyond, waiting. This is too much, Hannah's voice said sharply. The sky darkened, pulling back field strength. The Lemurian brain did not fight her, but it did not retreat either. Its outer layer stayed touching your thoughts, like a sea against a beach. It sent through one more simple image, a circle. Inside the circle, small dots, 4 dots. You, Olivia, Tunde, Alina. Outside the circle, more dots, scattered. Lines reached from the big presence to the circle's edge, not crossing it. From the circle, thin lines reached to the other dots. Shared zone, shared control. It was not asking for blind rule. It was offering a kind of counsel. It wants partners, Olivia said softly. Not slaves, not masters, a layer in between. Dream governance, Samuel said, awe in his tone. Human minds partnered to a planetary mind. Decisions made in shared states, data and feeling together. In our heads, Tunde said. Every night? Perhaps only for those who choose, Hannah said, like you four. The Lemurian field cooled a little, as if waiting for an answer it knew would not come right away. Above the ice, far out in the oceans, machines stirred. In the main control room, a separate team watched seabed machine monitors. As the dream link deepened, the frequencies coming off several key nodes began to shift. In the Indian Ocean, a buried device hummed in a new, cleaner pattern. Its output became less noisy, more focused. In the Pacific, one of the rising luminous cities brightened, its geometric towers shining more sharply through the dark water. Energy routing change, a tech muttered, staring at graphs. It is adjusting flows in real time. It is using the extra coherence from the human link. Cloud models updated. A chain of minor storms along a busy shipping lane began to weaken slightly. Deep ocean current models ticked. A cold tongue of water that had been creeping toward a sensitive reef slowed down. Are we doing that? Major Daniels asked, watching both the dream chamber feed and the global models. Not directly, Samuel said, but by syncing more fully with some human minds, the brain gains more resolution on our systems. It sees where our cities and farms sit, where our ships go. It can adjust without hitting us as hard. It is learning us, and we are learning it, Olivia said from the dream, her voice carrying faintly into the waking room. Through muscle micro-movements the machines picked up. Inside the shared dream, the ice returned. You stood again on the clear sheet, the Lemurian brain's bulk below, the sky rolling with slow green light. The feeling of falling faded. Your sense of self pulled back into a tighter shape. Your anchor memory glowed close, hot rain, wet pavement. Your small hands spread to feel the drops. It had not gone away. It had stretched, but it held. How far can this go? You asked, turning to Olivia. In theory, she said, we could one day let it into us much deeper. Planetary mind fusion. It could feel through us. We could think with it. But that is not a first step. Not unless we want to risk losing what I feels like. The presence did not push again. It had tested the line and seen that it held. It settled, letting its field stay in touch with your minds without pulling harder. You sensed patience there, a time scale that did not match human years at all. It had waited through ice ages. It could wait longer, but it was not indifferent. It wanted to work more fully. It wanted an answer. Hannah's voice came again, more grounded now. All right, she said. We have reached our planned depth of link. We hold for 2 more minutes, then we start to withdraw. You are all still showing distinct self-signatures. That is good. You look down through the ice at the slow glowing body below. Its pulse matched your REM band exactly now, beat for beat. You felt a strange comfort in that, like breathing with someone else in a quiet room. So Tunde said, "What do we tell it? Yes, we will help you hold the world tight. Or no, stay asleep and let our storms and quakes run wild." "Neither," Olivia said. "Not yet. We tell it we understand the question, that we need time, that we will return." You felt the presence listen as she formed that thought clearly, like a phrase sent down a wire. Understanding came back, not agreement, not refusal, simply heard. The circle image returned. The dots inside it glowed a bit brighter. Trial Council. It had marked you 4 as the first. A small, strange pride rose in your chest, mixed with fear. You, a single human mind, had just been noticed and tagged by a brain that ran under continents. "Begin withdrawal," Hannah said. The dream ice grew foggy. The polar lights dimmed. The feeling of the Lemurian field faded. Layer by layer, like walking backward out of warm water, you woke with a sharp inhale. The sleep pod shield rose away. The chamber lights brightened slowly to a soft white. Your heart thudded, but not wildly. Your skin was damp with sweat. Hannah stood over you, eyes bright, hands steady on a tablet. "Vitals are within safe range," she said. "How do you feel?" You searched for words. "Taller," you said at last. "Stretched, but still me." You checked quickly in your own head. You remembered who you were, where you were from, the faces of people you loved, the choices you had made. None of that felt faded. Olivia sat up in her pod, rubbing her eyes. "It did not smash our minds," she said. "It reached. We held. That is a good sign." Tunde let out a shaky laugh. "I saw my mother's kitchen and a map of global ocean currents at the same time," he said. "I am not sure how I feel about that." Alina swung her legs over the side of her pod. "It showed me an earthquake that never happened," she said. "It could have. It bled the pressure out slowly, over centuries, through that grid." It was proud of that. Major Daniels came down from the control booth, his boots ringing on the metal stairs. From the outside, he said, "You all looked peaceful. No seizure spikes, no sharp panic. The Lemurian brain did not send any high-energy bursts. It adjusted some seabed flows, but nothing harmful that we can see." Samuel followed, holding a pad full of data. "This was just a first handshake," he said. "Surface-level sharing, sample of identity, basic meanings. But already, the global model shows tiny, fine-tuned changes that cut damage without freezing everything." Olivia looked around at the group. "The risk is clear," she said. "Deeper links could erode our sense of self. Constant nightly contact could slowly blend us into it. But the gain, we are talking about quakes softened, storms shaped, melting slowed, with care for where we live. And we have more information now," you said. "It does not want to crush us. It wants to adjust with us. It is willing to use a council layer that matters." Hannah nodded. "We can design better protocols," she said. "Shorter links, stronger anchors, clear consent. We can map how far we can go before identity blur becomes dangerous." Major Daniels folded his arms. "And we must also think of something else," he said. "What happens if only a small group links? A council of dreamers who speak for a planet. Who picks them? Who keeps them honest? How do people trust decisions that come from inside a shared dream no one else can see?" Silence sat in the chamber for a moment. The Lemurian brain waited below, patient. On the surface, faraway waves shifted just a little more kindly around busy ports. A drought line in one dry region eased by a fraction in the forecast. These were small changes, but they carried a clear message. With deeper waking, it could do more. Olivia looked at you. "You felt its question," she said. "You saw what it showed us. How do you feel about going in again?" You thought of the 2 pictures, the bright shell around the Earth, storms tamed, human actions narrowed, and the dimmer shell, wild weather, shocks, and the full range of human chaos. You thought of your hot summer rain. I think you said slowly, we cannot decide after one talk, but I also think not talking to it would be worse. It is already in our dreams. Pretending it is not there will not protect our freedom. It will only keep us blind. Tunde nodded. So we go back, he said. Carefully, together. Alina cracked a tired smile. And we ask better questions, she said. If it helps us, what does it ask in return exactly? Samuel looked down at his data, then up at the group. Chapter 1 was finding the harmonic, he said. Chapter 2 was touching the tissue. This was Chapter 3, first contact in dreams. He met Major Daniel's eyes. Next, Samuel said, we have to decide how much say this thing gets over our future, and how much say we get over its. Outside, the polar sky glowed faintly. Deep below, the Lemurian brain pulsed, its rhythm now traced not just in the bones of the earth, but in the dreams of 4 human minds that had agreed to listen. The choice that waited ahead would not be simple. It would ask what humans were willing to trade for a calmer planet, and what kind of self they wished to keep. The days after the first dream link felt strangely quiet. The Lemurian brain did not push again. It kept its pulse steady, matched to the REM harmonic, like a huge heart beating calmly under the ice. The seabed machines held their new, cleaner patterns. The rising cities on the ocean floor glowed with a clear, steady light. Inside base Lemuria-South, the noise moved back to human voices and humming machines. Olivia, Samuel, Hannah, Major Daniels, and the rest of the team spent long hours in the meeting dome, a round room with screens on every wall. Graphs, maps, and brainwave plots hung in the air around them, shifting as they talked. You sat there too, your body tired but your mind still stretched from the link. Tunde and Alina shared your table. The 4 of you had become the circle in other people's quiet comments. On one screen, a global climate model spun. Lines showed slightly lower storm strengths in several key regions since the link test. On another, maps of tectonic stress lit up with small, steady releases where the Lemurian grid had eased pressure. These are not huge changes, Samuel said, pointing with a light pen. We are not seeing miracles, but we are seeing clear, targeted improvements, and no surprise quakes or freak storms as a side effect. The Kenyan climate modeler added, that may be the most important part. It is not just shoving energy around blindly. Hannah brought up the brain data next. Color bands showed your REM patterns. Olivia's, Tunde's, and Alina's during the link, and for several nights after. Short term, she said, there is some extra activity in your sleep, more vivid dreams, slightly higher REM harmonic strength, but your waking scans are normal. Memory tests, identity checks, decision tasks, all within your usual range. So we did not lose ourselves, Tunde said. Not yet, at least. Hannah nodded. That does not mean there is no long-term risk, she said. Repeated deep links could slowly change how your brains organize. We need to go slowly, with breaks, and with full consent all the way. Major Daniels leaned back in his chair, watching all of it. The science is clear enough for now, he said. The real mess is not in the graphs, it is in this. He tapped the side of his head. What we are about to decide is not a simple on or off switch. It is about how we share control with something far larger than us. That is a political choice, an ethical choice, a personal choice, maybe even a spiritual one for some people. Olivia folded her hands on the table. First, we have to agree on what choices are even on the table, she said. Let's lay them out. Samuel stood and walked to a blank section of wall. With a flick of his pen, he drew 3 big circles. Option A, he said, writing inside the first circle. Keep the Lemurian brain as it is now. No more waking. No deeper link. We lock down the borehole, seal the probes, and leave it alone as much as possible. Minimal contact. Let it keep doing whatever it has already been doing, with no new help from us, and no new control over us. Option B, he said, moving to the second circle. We fully wake it. We give it more data, more power flows, more neural contact. We let it tighten Earth's climate and tectonics as far as its design allows. Strong control, strong stability. In return, it will almost surely limit many human actions that break its set points. Option C, he wrote in the third. We build a shared governance layer. We strengthen it some, but only through a human council that links in dreams. It gets more detail and guidance about our world through that council. It gains more influence, but not total rule. Humans keep a veto, at least in theory. He stepped back. These are simple shapes, he said. Reality will be messier, but this is our starting frame. Alina stared at the circles. Option A is a lie, she said. We already woke it more. We put a drill in its body. It felt us. It matched to us. Even if we seal everything now and fly away, the link will not fully close. It has tasted our pattern. Hannah nodded slowly. The RAM harmonic changed a bit after the first link, she said, bringing up a global plot. Only slightly, but enough to notice. Its baseline phase shifted closer to the Lemurian core's pulse. Humans are already different than before contact, so doing nothing is not really an option, Tunde said. Doing nothing is just choosing to let the current half-awake state continue without guidance. Major Daniels looked at option B. Full control, he said. Imagine a world with almost no big storms, no megaquakes, no runaway fires. Sea level held steady, crops in stable climate zones, billions of lives saved, maybe. He paused. Also imagine global output limits, he went on. Strict caps on how much we can dig, burn or build. Dream warnings if we plan something that could rattle the grid. Maybe even direct neural nudges to stop war. Would we still call that free? In some parts of the world, the Brazilian engineer said quietly, people would call that heaven. In others, they would call it a cage. Olivia turned to you. You felt its offer most clearly, she said. The circle, the dots, the shell. How did it feel to you? You thought back to the dream, the thick, bright shell around the planet, the slow, safe spin, the sense of calm. Then the wilder version, sharper storms and more pain, but more open paths. It did not feel like a villain, you said. It felt like a caretaker that has been doing its job for a long time. It is proud of that job. It does not think like us. It does not love or hate, but it cares about keeping things within a certain range. You looked at the circles on the wall. Full control would please it, you said. It was built for stability, but it also accepted the idea of a council. It sent that circle. It is willing to share, not just rule. That is our real chance, Olivia said. Option C. The Lemurian Grid Council met by secure link with the base later that week. Dozens of faces filled the meeting dome screens. Leaders from flooded island nations, inland megacities, farming unions, climate refugee groups, military alliances, and research coalitions. Some looked tired, some looked angry, some looked quietly hopeful. Olivia gave a clear report on the first dream link, using simple words and skipping the drama. Samuel showed the data on climate and quakes. Hannah explained the brain safety protocols and the risks of identity blur. Then it was your turn. You stood in front of the main camera, aware of many eyes on you. You asked what it is like to touch a planetary mind, you said. It is not like talking to a person. There are no mouths, no ears. It is like standing on a shore and feeling a huge tide move under your feet. You took a breath. It does not hate us, you continued. It does not love us. It includes us. In its long view, we are part of Earth, the way forests and oceans are. It wants the planet's systems stable, but it also saw our lives. It watched faces, streets, songs, wars, and it did not pull away. You described the circle image, the idea of a shared zone where human minds and the Lemurian brain could meet and talk through dreams, the feeling that it was willing to be guided as well as to guide. We do not have to hand it the keys, you said. We can sit in the car with it, but that will change us. We will think with something larger. We will feel more of Earth's pain and calm than we ever have. Some people might not want that. Some might. A woman from a Pacific island, her home mostly lost to the sea, spoke next. When the first storms came, no one asked my people if they wanted their world to drown, she said. Now you tell us there is a thing that could hold the seas stiller. You ask if we wish to stay wild, I ask, wild for who? The ones on high ground? A trade leader from a dry inland nation answered. If we give this brain more control, he said, it may cut our energy use hard. My people are just now getting stable power. Do we tell them, sorry, your time came too late. The planet cannot take it. We already passed many safe lines. A youth representative from a global climate movement said, we are arguing about fairness on a world that is already wounded. Maybe the fair thing is to stop hurting it, even if some dreams must change. The arguments went on for hours. Some wanted full control, others demanded full distance. Many hovered, uneasy, in between. At last, Dr. Yijin Rao, the older scientist from the council, spoke. We are not voting today to give or deny full power to this entity, she said. We are voting on this. Do we begin building a formal shared governance structure with it, or do we step away from deeper contact and accept whatever it does or does not do on its own? She looked at Olivia on the screen. Your team will design that structure if we say yes, she said, with help from many others. Dream protocols, council selection rules, limits, safeguards. Olivia nodded, looking both tired and steady. We can do that, she said. We can design a system where no single person or nation holds the link alone. We can share it, rotate it, watch each other. We can record dream council sessions. We can require clear waking approval for big changes. And if, at any point, Major Daniels added, we see signs that the Lemurian brain is pushing too far into human identity, or that humans are abusing the link, we build ways to back out. We keep physical controls over probes and power lines. The council members looked at one another in their tiny squares, then put it to a vote. The Pacific woman said, do we talk to our planet's mind as partners, or do we turn our backs and hope for the best? In the end, the vote was not clean. Some nations abstained, saying they needed more time. Some said yes with conditions. A few voted no, warning that any mind link would be the start of the end of human freedom. But the majority agreed on one thing. They would continue contact. They would build a shared governance layer. They would not wake the Lemurian brain to full control yet, but they would not walk away either. They gave the base team a mandate, 3 months to design a draft system for Dream Council sessions. Clear rules for who could link, how often, under what checks, a plan for how to let ordinary people see and question decisions made in those shared dreams. Designing that system was harder than any drill. In the weeks that followed, the meeting dome filled with new faces, legal experts, ethicists, social scientists, sleep doctors, indigenous leaders, and people who had experience in group decision-making that respected land and water. Hana worked on technical safeguards. She built anchor protocols, memory checks, and emergency cutoffs into the link rigs. No one would link alone. Each dreamer would have a waking partner watching their signals, ready to pull them out. Samuel mapped how much extra control the Lemurian brain could safely use without locking key systems too tightly. He drew up red lines, things the grid brain must not do without. Human approval, like cutting power to clinics or sealing off whole regions with storms to stop war. Olivia focused on meaning. How do we talk with something that thinks in climate curves and tectonic shifts? She asked. We need shared symbols, shared images, simple shapes that can carry complex ideas without twisting them. You helped her build a dream language of basic signs you had already seen in the first link. Circles for councils and shells, lines for flows, colored pulses for levels of risk or pain. Over time you added more, testing them in short, shallow links to see how the Lemurian brain responded. Sometimes it misunderstood. Once, when you tried to send a picture of waiting, it thought you meant free fall and showed you a model of a world without any control. You adjusted your symbol. Learning went both ways. Tunda and Alina worked on selection rules. Who gets to sit in the dream circle? Tunde asked one night, staring at a list on his screen. Scientists? Elected leaders? People chosen by lot? If only experts go in, people could be overwhelmed. Alina tapped her pen on the table. We mix, she said. Some trained minds, some chosen by lottery from different regions, some from groups who have suffered most from climate damage. We give them training. We give them the right to say no. We rotate them, and we never ever let total power rest in that circle alone, Major Daniels added. Dream decisions must come back to waking councils for final checks. The Lemurian brain may think fast and deep, but we live with the results in our bodies. Piece by piece, a plan took shape. It was far from perfect. It would need constant change, but it was a start. At last, the day came for the first formal Dream Council session. Not just a test link like before, but a structured meeting with clear questions. In the sleep chamber, 8 pods stood ready this time, not 4. You lay down in your pod, sensors warm on your skin. Olivia and Alina took 2 other pods. Beside them lay a farmer from a drought-hit region, a teacher from a flood-prone delta, a doctor from a mountain clinic that had seen glacier loss up close, a youth activist from a floating city, and a coastal engineer from a new sea wall project. Hannah moved among you with quiet focus. Samuel and Major Daniels watched from the control booth, surrounded by screens. Tonight's scope is limited, Hannah said. We are not here to ask it to change everything. We are here with 2 pilot questions. She glanced at her tablet. Question 1. Can it slightly weaken this year's predicted storm chain in the South Atlantic without causing worse damage elsewhere? A map on the wall showed a string of storms on track to hit already battered coastlines. Question 2. Can it adjust deep ocean temperature flow to give an extra few years of breathing room to a major coral field that supports millions of people without triggering droughts in nearby regions? Another map showed a glowing patch of reef, almost out of time. These are tests, Samuel said through the speaker. We see how well it can act with clear, narrow goals. We watch for side effects. We see how Dream Council choices feel when we wake. Olivia looked over at you. It will sense that our link is more formal this time, she said. We should be clear in our thoughts. No hidden tricks. We are not here to trap it. We are here to see if trust is possible. You nodded. Your anchor memory waited, bright as ever. Hot rain, wet dust, your own small world. Closing shields, Hannah said. The covers slid, the lights dimmed. Once more, you let your mind drift, knowing that something huge and patient waited below. The dream came faster this time. You stood again on clear ice, but the scene was more detailed now. The sky above was full of not just shifting color, but lines and points that matched real data. Storm tracks, temperature bands, fault lines. Around you, the other 7 council members took shape. They looked as they did in waking life, but there was a glow around each of them, a faint outline that pulsed with their REM, harmonic strength. The Lemurian presence was stronger too. You did not see it as a body. You felt it as a depth, a pull beneath the ice. Its field wrapped around the circle gently, like the sea touching a ring of stones. This time, it did not reach first. It waited. Olivia stepped forward. In her mind, she formed the first question as you had practiced it. The storm chain in the South Atlantic appeared in the air above the ice as a string of spinning red and orange shapes. Then beside it, she drew small circles for port cities, towns, farms. She changed the storm colors to softer blues and greens, showed ships and buildings still standing, people going about life. Next, she added a careful image. Energy lines rerouted under the sea. Heat shifted in small amounts, but a soft red band appeared over another region to show no extra drought here. She marked it with a cross. No, the Lemurian brain watched. You felt its attention sweep through the storm chain, through the ocean below, through the land. It touched every dot Olivia had set as human life. You sensed it calculating in ways you could not follow. Then it answered. The storm shapes changed. They shrank a little, softened in color. Their paths bent slightly. Wind fields reshaped. At the same time, a very thin orange band appeared over a distant patch of open ocean. More wave height there, fewer near the coast. It was saying, yes, I can do this, with trade-offs here, not there. You felt its attitude, focused, calm. It was proud of finding a way to help without breaking either its own rules or your request. In the control booth, Samuel and the climate team watched live models update. The grid brain is already retuning some seabed machines, a tech said. If we approve this path, it will lock in more. If we say no, it can release. Inside the dream, The circle of 8 humans looked at each other. "Do we accept?" the farmer from the dry region asked. "This seems like a clear good. Less harm now, no worse later. But we must also think of what pattern we set," the youth activist said. "If we ask for storm help today, what will we ask for tomorrow? How fast does this become a habit?" You felt the Lemurian brain listening to all of this. You sent your own thought in a simple sign, a small, bright circle for now, a dotted line for later, and a hand shape held up for we. Still choose each time. It understood. No anger, no push, just there. After some debate, the council formed a shared decision. In your minds, you all brightened the softened storm images and sent them downward, willed them into reality. That was the sign you had agreed on for yes. The Lemurian field warmed around you. Far away, machines hummed. Storm models edged. Waves shifted from harbors to empty open water. The choice was made. The second question was harder. The coral reef appeared in the dream sky as a bright, detailed shape. Branching structures, fish, small boats, people diving and fishing. Around it you saw the slow creep of warming water, color-coded as deadly red. Olivia formed the request. Could the grid brain slow the heat flow just enough to give 10 more years? Not forever, not to freeze the reef in time, just a delay. A chance for humans to cut their own emissions and adapt. This time, the Lemurian presence hesitated. You felt it consider. Deep ocean currents appeared as swirling rivers around the reef, linking to weather patterns above. When it showed its trial moves, you saw how shifting the heat here could mean slightly less rain over a grain belt, there, or more ice on a crucial river. Pain here, pain there. It weighed them all. Finally, it answered. It showed you a plan that would save the reef for perhaps 5 years, not 10, while keeping drought increases very small in the linked regions. Then it showed another plan that would save the reef 10 years, but with sharper drought over a large area. You felt a steady pressure on the second option. Not a push to choose it, but a warning. More strain here, more stored stress in the system later. "It is telling us the cost clearly," Alina said. "We asked. It shows. Now it waits." No map could make the choice easy. In the waking world, the reef supported millions of people. The grain belt and rivers supported hundreds of millions. In the dream, those people did not appear as faces, just as dots and flows. But you carried some faces in your own memory, from news feeds, from meetings, from your own travels. They slid into the gaps. You saw hungry children on dust roads. You saw empty harbors where coral had died and fish were gone. You saw both futures. "This is what shared governance looks like," Olivia said softly. "Not escaping hard choices, sharing them with something that can see more of the map, but not telling us which path is right." The room of 8 minds argued, in words and in images. The farmer showed cracked soil, then slightly deeper cracks. The coastal engineer showed boats laid up on dry shore. The doctor showed her clinic, already strained, and a wave of new patients if food dropped more. You spoke of fairness. The reef community had done little to cause the warming. The grain belt nations had burned more. Did that matter? Or was that just human guilt on top of physics? Through it all, the Lemurian brain did not tip the scales. It had no concept of guilt. It only knew balance, stress, loss, and continuity. In the end, you chose the 5-year plan. You brightened that image, dimmed the 10-year one, and sent your yes to the smaller, safer move. It hurt. You felt the pain as a band in your chest, but you also felt something else, respect. The Lemurian field cooled, then firmed around that choice. It began to tune flows to match. In the control booth, Samuel watched ocean models shift. "A small win," he said, "and a small, honest loss, both at our request." When you woke from that second council, you were more tired than before, but also calmer. You had not become part of the Lemurian brain. It had not become human, but you had just made 2 global moves together, in a way that was recorded, shared, and chosen with eyes open. Outside the base, the polar sky was clear. Wind scraped over the ice. Deep below, the vast brain pulsed, then adjusted its flows in careful, limited ways. Later, in the meeting dome, the 8 of you gave a full report to the council and to the public feeds. You did not dress it up. You did not pretend there were magic answers. We chose between different harms, you said. We had help seeing the options, but the pain of choosing stayed human. Some people still hated the idea. Dream lords, a commentator in a rich northern city, called you secret rulers of the world. Others saw something else. For the first time, a child on a floating city feed said, "Someone talked to the planet about us," and the planet talked back. Olivia closed her pad and looked around the dome at the tired, thoughtful faces. "This is not finished," she said. "It may never be. We will always be adjusting, learning, saying yes and no. Some days we will want more help from the Lemurian brain. Some days we will choose to step back, to let things run wilder, even if it hurts. That is what shared rule means." Samuel smiled faintly. "We thought we came here to decide whether to flip a big switch," he said. "On or off, control or freedom." He shook his head. "Instead, we found a partner," he went on. "Not a perfect one, not a human one, but a partner who holds the deep systems we live on. The question is not who wins. It is how do we stay ourselves while thinking with it." Major Daniels looked at you. "You were afraid," he said quietly, "that joining with a planetary mind might erase what makes humans unique." You met his gaze. "I still am," you said, "but I have seen that contact does not have to mean surrender. We can touch, then return. We can share sight without giving up our names." You thought of your anchor, hot rain, wet dust. You knew now that you would carry that memory into every dream council for as long as you served. It would be your reminder that even when, standing on clear ice above a sleeping world mind, you were still a single person, with a single life that mattered. Behind your eyes, the circle image glowed again, not as a command, as an offer. A ring of human minds, linked in sleep, speaking with a brain the size of continents, both sides learning how to live on the same world without crushing each other. Outside, far away, a storm weakened slightly before landfall. A reef breathed in cooler water for a few more years. Somewhere, a child went to sleep in a house that would still be standing in the morning. Deep under Antarctica, the Lemurian brain stayed half awake, half dreaming, its pulse steady with the REM harmonic. It knew, now, that the small, bright sparks flickering on its surface could talk back. The future would be made not by it alone, and not by humans alone, but in the shared space between. A new kind of governance had begun. Not just laws and borders and parliaments, but dreams, data, and a living planet, thinking together, step by fragile step. The first months of Dream Council work passed with no large shocks. The storms did not vanish. Quakes still rattled some regions. Fires still burned in over-dry forests. But some sharp edges softened. A cyclone curved a little sooner away from a crowded coast. A heat wave broke one day earlier than models had feared. A fault released its strain in a series of tiny tremors instead of one big break. Every time the Lemurian brain made a move with the Council's help, the effects were logged. Waking world teams traced side impacts. People argued about fairness and cost. The process was slow and tiring, yet something quiet and deep was changing too. It was not just the planet, it was people. You noticed it first in your own sleep. On nights without a scheduled link, you still dreamed of ice and slow lights sometimes. The Lemurian presence sat farther away on those nights, like a mountain on the horizon instead of a weight under your feet. But it was still there. Your anchor memory, hot rain, wet dust, opened the same each time, clear as ever. You would stand in that childhood street, feel the drops, smell the dry ground waking up. Then sometimes, that little scene would widen. Overhead, clouds would take on faint grid lines. Shadows of seabed machines and rising cities would slide under the pavement, transparent as ghosts. It was not the Lemurian brain forcing itself in. It was your own mind starting to include the planet's deep systems in the way it pictured the world. You are thinking with it even when you are not linked, Hannah said one morning, After checking your sleep charts, just a little, some of its rhythm has become part of your own. Is that bad? You asked. She looked thoughtful. Not on its own, she said. Brains change all the time as we learn. The difference here is that what you are learning is not just facts. It is a way of feeling the earth. She tapped the chart. I watch for signs that your sense of I is fading, she went on. But so far you are still very much you, your fears, your loves, your stubborn parts. They are all there. They just sit now in a larger map. You were not the only one. Tunde reported that when he walked along a floating city's edge during a break back home, he could sense the undercurrents in a way he could not explain. Alina said she dreamed of fault lines under every mountain she saw, with colors that showed tension levels. Olivia, who had lived with the REM harmonic for years, started catching subtle shifts in people's eyes when they talked about weather. Some almost flinched, as if a part of them was suddenly aware that someone else, something else, was listening. Not everyone liked that. A new movement grew in some cities and online spaces. They called themselves free dreamers. They refused any work that touched Lemurian systems. They wore nightcaps lined with low-tech static cloth and copper mesh, claiming it made their sleep pure. Some locked their bedrooms in homemade Faraday cages. Others camped in areas where the grid was weak, like a few high plateaus and deep caves. We will not share our minds with a machine we never voted for, one free dreamer speaker said in a broadcast. Not even a biological one. Not in waking time, not in sleep. Olivia answered calmly in a public forum. You have that right, she said. We are building opt-out zones. We are not forcing links. The global RM harmonic existed long before our work, but the Dream Council links will only include those who consent. Still, distrust remained. Some people feared that even without direct links, the Lemurian brain would nudge their dreams, shaping ideas softly over time. Others feared that governments would quietly favor those with link training, creating a new class. Major Daniels worried too, but from a different angle. He met you in the small base gym one-off shift, watching you slice slow kicks through the air for exercise. We used to think of war as soldiers and rockets, he said. Now what happens if a rogue group tries to hit the Lemurian brain? Not with bombs, but with minds. Angry links, trying to jam it, trying to bend it. You think someone will try to use the council as a weapon? You asked. Someone will try to use anything, he said. It is how humans act. He gave a small, tired grin. Our job is to stay a step ahead, he went on. Build barriers. Train dream guards as well as dream council. Make sure no one can jack into the grid without checks. You had never thought of yourself as a guard, but in a way you were. Not just for the planet, for human minds too. The Lemurian brain did not care about these human tensions in the way people did. It watched protests and councils, the way it watched storms and currents, as patterns on its shell. But through the council, it began to learn more about what disagreement meant. It saw that humans could hold two or more conflicting truths at once and not break, that a person could love safety and fear cages, love freedom and fear chaos. It did not feel those things, but it marked them. In one later Dream Council session, you felt it trying to show a new kind of image. A circle of dots again, but this time, some dots pulled at a boundary, while others pushed inward. Lines of tension formed between them, not breaking the circle, just stretching it into different shapes. It sent that pattern to you with a very slight, questioning tone in its field. You tried to answer. In your own thoughts, you showed a person's face crying and laughing at once, a city building seawalls and parks at the same time, a group arguing loudly and then sharing a meal. The Lemurian field held those images, then steadied. It had learned a new word, conflict without collapse. Maybe it seemed to suggest it could learn to live with that too. As the links deepened week by week, a few council members began to notice something else at the edges of their dreams. Sometimes, in the last seconds before waking, they would feel a pull, like a hand brushed their sleeve. A part of them seemed to hang back for a heartbeat, wanting to stay inside that wider view. It was not the Lemurian brain tugging, it was their own wish, to feel everything again. to know tides and winds and rock as clearly as they knew their rooms. Hannah called this the quiet edge of fusion. The danger is not only from the big brain, she said in a debrief. It is also from us, from the tiny voice inside that says, what if I let go and become part of something larger? Would I lose my pain, my loneliness? The doctor from the mountain clinic admitted that on hard days, after treating too many injured people, he longed for that release. I can see now why some might choose planetary mind fusion if we ever allowed it, he said, to lay down a small self and become part of a wider care. And why we must be careful, Olivia said. We cannot make fusion an easy escape from human pain. That would be a slow death of our kind. They added new checks, questions for council members. Did you feel a wish to stay blended? How strong? Did it carry into waking hours? Did you find yourself caring less about your own life or more? Anyone who reported strong pulls was given a break from linking until their sense of self felt solid again. Sometimes you needed those breaks. You would walk alone along the base's ice edge, the sky a flat gray lid over the world, and try to think only about your own body, your cold hands, the crunch of snow under your boots, the tiny lift of your heart when you saw a faint line of blue where the ice broke to open water. You would remind yourself, I am small. Small does not mean nothing. Small can be precious. Meanwhile, far from Antarctica, old stories returned in new forms. People revived myths of Gaia, of world spirits, of sleeping giants. Some called the Lemurian brain the deep mother, others grid mind, others simply the core. In some cities, new quiet halls opened where people could sit and watch live feeds of the grid's gentle shift seabed flows, cloud bands, fault maps, and listen to soft music shaped by the REM harmonic. They said it made them feel less alone on a trembling planet. In other places, groups gathered to reject this new age. They burned mock crystal brains in small protests and chanted for sky alone, no mind below. They mocked the Dream Council as starry-eyed sleepers. Human culture did what it always did. It split, it argued. It created art and jokes and fear around the unknown. The Lemurian brain did not stop any of it. In one session, it even showed you a set of images, fires on its surface, people shouting, then rain putting the fires out again, then new gatherings. It labeled it with a very faint, newly learned sign you had built together, cycle. It accepted that chaos on its shell was part of the whole. Not all changes were gentle. In the second year of council work, a sharp test came. Warning signs lit up in Samuel's models, a buildup of deep stress along a major fault, tied to a subduction zone near a dense coast. The Lemurian grid had been bleeding that stress slowly, but a hard barrier had formed. Rock lock, they called it. We have a choice, Samuel told the Dream Council that night. Ask the Lemurian brain to hold the pressure longer, in hope the lock breaks quietly, or ask it to trigger a controlled quake now. Smaller than the worst case, but still deadly for many. The dream that night was heavy. You stood not on clear ice, but on a cracked ridge. Below, the fault glowed red. Lines connected it to cities, bridges, ports, or palm. The Lemurian presence waited, steady. It could not erase this tension. Physics had limits even for it. It could only shape the timing and spread. This time, it did not offer a clear, safe path. Any move meant pain. The council argued until voices broke. Some begged for delay, to move more people. Others said delay could turn a medium disaster into a huge one if the lock failed wrong. At last, a vote was taken. With shaking minds, the council chose a mid-strength event, soon, under conditions that would let more buildings sway, safely, and fewer fires start. You felt sick as you sent your yes. The Lemurian field shuddered once, like a breath drawn in. Days later, the ground ripped. Even with better timing, people died. Buildings fell. A wave hit a harbor wall and broke ships free. But the megaquake that might have flattened the entire region did not come. Tsunami heights were lower than feared. In the debrief, some families blessed the council for saving their towns. Others cursed it for deciding their loved one's fate. You carried both cries in your heart. In the next link, The Lemurian brain showed you the fault now cooler. The stress bled out over a wider area. It did not feel joy or sorrow. It just marked the new balance. You, however, lay awake for nights. Here was the hardest truth. Shared governance did not mean escape from tragedy. It only meant facing it with eyes open. As years passed, children grew up who had never known a world without the Lemurian grid's light in the news feeds. Some would become free dreamers. Some would join the council. Some would treat the whole thing like weather. Always there, worth checking before traveling, but not something to fear every day. You watched them with a strange mix of hope and worry. You knew that one day you would age out of council work. Your brain would slow. New minds would take your place in the circle. You hoped they would carry both parts, the awe of standing above a planetary brain and the stubborn, simple love of their own small lives. On a quiet day, sitting with Olivia in the base lounge, you spoke this out loud. "I used to think," you said, "that the worst thing would be if humans lost their eye and melted into this larger mind. Now I think the worst might be if we become so used to its help that we stop doing our own hard work, if we lean on it like a crutch and never grow up." Olivia nodded slowly. "Real partnership means both sides change," she said. "It has already grown more detailed in how it sees us. We have grown more detailed in how we see Earth. The question is, will we use that growth to become more responsible, or just more lazy?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe both, on different days," she added. "That is very human." You both laughed, tired but real. Outside the small window, ice stretched to the horizon. Above, thin clouds moved in layers that you could now read almost like a book. Wind levels, moisture bands, slight shifts where unseen machines below the sea nudged heat deep under your feet. The Lemurian brain slept and woke in careful waves, never fully one or the other. It knew now that the noisy creatures on its shell could be more than random trouble. They could be partners, not perfect ones, but partners still. And you, a single person with a single anchor memory of hot rain and wet dust, were part of the thin line holding that partnership somewhere between fusion and distance, not fully merged, not fully alone. Just at the quiet edge, where a planetary mind and human minds touched, and then, every morning, gently let go.